possibly a secondary expo, which we are going to see later, and also to kind of focus fire individual on weak units that might be running away, and also you can kind of do some hit and run tactics with them. So we'll see how Fob uses guards in this sense. Eventually, I will let you know that he does end up losing all these guards to towers later on, but they kind of serve their purpose, which is really nice, and we'll kind of go over that. And this is a good reason for guards too, is you can creep out this expansion spot right behind your base here on this map on Twisted Meadows, and those guards make taking care of that level 10 red dragon relatively easily. And in a sense, this expo here by Fob is kind of the undead counter to that early expo by Sky. So he's now seeing that, okay, there's an expo going up, there's probably going to be a lot of towers. I'm not going to have a suitable enough force to take down 3 or 4, even slightly fortified towers, the minor armor upgrades on that. So in order to counter that for myself, I'm going to go in there and create an expo to kind of counter the economic advantage that the human player is going to get and give me that economic advantage. So in having the Zeppelin come from behind the base like this, Fob basically allowed Sky to say, okay, wow, Fob now has an expansion over there, and I'm going to have to deal with that later. Even though he was kind of trying to force maybe TP from Fob if he was creeping somewhere else or creeping another expo, in seeing that Zeppelin come from behind the base, Sky can reasonably have a good assumption, say, okay, there's an expo going up there, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to deal with that, or it's going to be a lot of trouble for me, and it's going to ruin my economic advantage. Really, really close death there by that Death Knight. If you were paying attention there, I'm sure you guys were, because it was, these two caliber players really make for exciting moments. That Death Knight just barely got picked up into that Zeppelin with 3 hit points left. He was able to regenerate a little bit while he's in that Zeppelin, drops him again to try to do a coil move, but he, instead of risking it, he just picks him back up. Really, really cool moves. Really good Zeppelin use by Fob here. If you have the micro for it and you want to try something new to amaze your opponents and amaze your friends, Zeppelin micro is something you want to practice. I really highly recommend it. It's not that big of an investment, and it's kind of hard for anyone to really deal with it. It's an air unit, and if you're not going air typically in your mix, it's going to be a little bit more difficult for that human player to actually do anything, or any player. So, yeah, Zeppelin micro is pretty cool here. So just to confirm that, Sky just used his reveal at the Goblin Laboratory with that farm that he's got over there to confirm that, yes, there is an expansion going up there, and he also saw there's a necropolis going up there too. So he realizes that's going to be a little bit of an issue. I think he does pick up that Goblin Zeppelin relatively soon, and we'll see some pressure going on there. In the meantime, Fob is sending off his gargoyles over to the town hall of Sky that he scouted out earlier on, and this wasn't necessarily meant for him to do anything as far as like take it down or anything. It was more of just like, okay, let's see how many towers he actually has up over there. Okay, now that I know, I can do something else. Sky does a really, really good move here, and he ends up taking his Archmage. His Archmage does have a greater healing potion and a Scroll of Town Portal on him, but we're going to watch and see what Sky does here. Now, the Archmage was just basically here with his, he brought the Shredder along to do a little bit of harassment here and maybe stop this gold mine from this haunted gold mine that was already finished. He's trying to destroy here. Fortunately, a Nova goes off, a few hits by the Death Knight. He starts trying to use his Staff of Teleportation, and immediately it's done, and that Archmage falls. This is really, really bad for Sky, and this is kind of one of the big turning points, I think, in the game. Having lost that Goblin Shredder and having lost his Archmage here, he's going to have for his Archmage to come back. Being at a keep now, he's going to have to either make the decision to Tavern Res his Archmage, which I believe he does end up doing, so he can construct his Mountain King. Okay, so that's what he ends up doing. That's very expensive for him. Not only was that Archmage killed, which is good for the undead player and giving him experience, and it hurts kind of the economic advantage that Sky was getting from that first early expansion there. So he has having to kind of waste more money on resing that the Archmage from the tavern there. So, all these little things start to add up overall. We're going to see a lot of the little things that Fob does to actually, make this a little bit more interesting here. So Sky's at the point now where he's kind of had to retreat a little bit. He just lost his hero. He doesn't really have a big army here, and this is very common for human players to kind of rely on their base defenses and their heavy powering, or heavy the creep potential of their heroes, with the Archmage specifically, in trying to kind of delay their opponent until they can get a huge tier 3 army. Now this is exactly what most human players are going to be doing here. Fob I'm kind of shoutcasting this a little bit, but there's some reasoning behind his thinking here. Fob doesn't yet have a big enough army to where he can push into these towers here, and he knows he just finished killing off that Archmage, so he's either he doesn't know if the Archmage was recently bought back, but he does know that he's kind of got a little bit of time here to mess around, and why not use that time to kind of gain a big advantage or a bigger advantage and creep? So that Tome of Experience, he almost left there. That would have been pretty funny, but he didn't. So he creeps that off, gets Tome of Experience on his Lich, which is nice. Now we have level 2 Nova and I believe level 2 Coil, which is going to be very, very good in the coming fights here. As far we don't see it just yet, and I'm going to talk about item purchasing later, but we're going to talk about that in a second. Sorry, I got a little bit ahead of myself. There's a lot going on here. The Sky is opting now to try to set up a second expansion, and this is again a common practice to do here. Fav sees this really early with a shade, Now, as undead players, I don't know how many of you undead players actually use shades, but until gyrocopters are in the mix, shades are very, very good, especially at keeping the tabs on your opponent. Not necessarily always knowing where your opponent's physically at, like on the map, but where your opponent's at in regards to tech, where your opponent's at in regards to setting up expansions and things like that. It's important. Make 2 or 3 of them, man. Have them at different parts of the map. You know, I think Fav's gonna end up sending a shade over to Sky's main base, and he's got one here over at the expansion. He's going to have one chasing around his army and stuff like that, so it's very, very important. I'm kind of went over this little bit of a fight that was going on here, but Fav kind of is ignoring these constructing towers here. Now, a little bit of history or a little technical details here on the guard towers. Guard towers, when they're constructed here, let me take a look at my notes because I don't know off the top of my head. They do take 50 seconds to construct here. So from scout tower to guard tower, it takes 50 seconds there. So if you know, if you were there and you saw it, obviously Fav did see that with the shade. When those towers started to construct, a little timer kind of went off in his head and said, okay, well, I don't have to worry about these for 50 seconds. Let me focus on killing off peasants. Let me focus on killing off heroes and doing some damage here. But now that he's lost the majority of his gargoyles due to mainly guard towers, not necessarily those Dragonhawk riders, he lost a good bit amount of just those towers, and which that in a sense means that the experience from those guards weren't able to be distributed to the human heroes. When a guard tower or any towers, a burrow or an orc tower or anything like that actually gets the kill on a unit, those heroes don't actually get experience from that. So that's kind of the downfall, a little bit of a Blizzard's balance with the guard towers there. They're still really, really much of a pain in the ass, but, sorry, I don't like to swear in actually my audio commentary, so I'll catch myself on that one. But really good move there by Fav. We just missed it, but the human player or Sky was forced to TP there because his Archmage kind of ran out. Maybe a little bit of a misclick there by Sky. It kind of ran his hero out there, and Fav had more than enough mana to do a Coil Nova. First he gets the Nova off, and he misses the Coil, I believe is how that ended up working out for him. So this is really good. Although Sky was able to get those guard towers up, which are now fortified with the level 2 of the fortified army or armor from the lumber mill there by the human player.